focus there for a minute. Now what happened, I heard about a meal that was very sacred to ancient cultures. And so, as I got older, around age 17, I actually ran away from home and jumped on trains without them knowing I was there, and even worked on freight liners. I went to all 7 continents. I had a 17-year experience. Went into old dusty catacombs, rare book collections, ancient and arcane collections that are now under lock and key. You can't even get in, even if you're an archaeologist or anything else. And a lot of religions control these collections, so do some government powers. But I was looking for this ancient meal that I'd heard about as a little kid. And I came across some of the most precious and arcane information that cultures had, that they had tested over time and distance in the human experience, of what plants and what foods healed different anatomical sites and physiological function. And they shared it in oral traditions. They wanted it handed down for future generations. And then I found out that 4 different times there were mass murders of the scholars, which means observer, and the healers. It even happened in the 13 colonies with the killing and the burning of the Wicca, the women of wisdom. They did not want the knowledge of healing, and specifically this food amongst the people. They wanted to take it. And so anyway, I eventually stumbled on it after I quit looking for it 2 years later in a privately owned collection of ancient arcane artifacts in Washington, D.C., just south of Towson. A billionaire and his family owns that collection. We accidentally met at the soup and salad bar, got to talking. I started working there and opened up a crate. He had over 40,000 items that had been purchased since the 1700s that never even opened. And he wanted them opened, use micrometers for the measures, display them, and 2 months into it, I pop it open, there's a scroll. Could have been written by Daniel Bold, because that's where it was called. Paul's is in the King James Version of the Bible. The Essenes, the vegetarian long-lived Essene culture, is called the Theurgy, most sacred meal. And then Pythagoras called it the meal of Hercules. And in the ancient Olympics, they would eat that meal and drink water for 40 days prior to the games. Opened it up, it's a scroll of 42 pages that is translated by a man by the name of Leadbeater back in the 1890s. And I just started crying. I couldn't believe that I finally found it. And so we started to hand make it. It's all 100% organic, no GMOs, no crap.
Well, let's go back on this part. Now, did they let you take a copy of this out of there?
No.
Well, how did you get a copy of it? Yeah. You have to your right half the part of the story, brother.
I went to the owner and I said, look, can I buy this scroll? And he said, of course not. He said, why are you interested? Oh, cause. I said, can I just write it down and make a copy of the translation? No. And every time you went into work there, you had to go through these little metal detectors. They entered your pockets, put everything in a bag, then you'd pick it up and leave at the end of the day. And so finally I went back to him and I said, do you mind if I just memorize it? And he started laughing and he said, go ahead. Thank you. So that's what I did. I memorized those 42 pages. I'd go home at night and write down the pages from memory. And if there was a gap, I'd picture that in my mind, go back, make sure I had that, come back. And so that's how we finally wound up with that ancient meal.
Why don't you share with everyone what pulse is? I mean, exactly.
Pulse is a food that was based on the ancient healing wisdom that was in all the cultures on the earth at one time. They believed that it came out of Pangaea, when the earth was all one landmass, then broke off into the 7 continents, which they believed matched the 7 body systems. And because the earth is 70% water and our bodies are 70% water, they believed that we're a microcosm of the earth herself, and that she's a microcosm of the solar system and the galaxy and beyond. And so this meal was put together based on what they call the law of similarities. That a thing like unto itself is drawn. For instance, a walnut looks like the human brain. It has the left and right hemisphere, the convoluted cerebral folds of the neocortex, the upper cerebrums or cerebellum. It looks just like a brain. Today they tested this at Cornell Medical and University of California, Berkeley. They actually tested walnuts on humans. Unbelievable. To put people at danger of eating walnuts. And they found out, yes, it does. Walnuts have the highest concentration of any food they've ever studied of all the omega-3s, 6s, 9s, and the other neurochemistry that they've been able to identify, which represents about 1/100th of 1% of human nutrition. But they've given names to it, so they sound like they're experts. But the walnuts target the function of the brain. There's a part of the brain called the amygdala. In Latin, that means almonds. Now they know that almonds targets the amygdala, which helps with the different neurochemicals of emotional joy and getting rid of stress and everything else. So this law of similarities. A tomato is red and has 4 chambers. Heart's red, 4 chambers. They now know from studies of today that tomatoes are heart food. And it's no accident we call them kidney beans.
Yeah.
They actually target the kidneys and help the function. So they put this meal together using foods that they believe target the entire body. They believed it was the most sacred meal that you could have. They would make that meal and put it in clay pots, which archaeologists have found in caves and under peat bogs. They know it's thousands of years old, and guess what? It never goes bad. No additives, no preservatives, no nothing. It was the wisdom of that age, because people stored it to get through possible famines and droughts within their region. And so anyway, that was the law of similarities today.
And you talk about how it stood its test of time. Even when they found these clay pots centuries later, they could add water to it and it was still edible and good.
All it does is
have you ever heard of anything like that?
Yeah, the only thing that is like that they are aware of, is honey. Honey never goes bad. Nothing can grow in honey. Not bacteria, not mold, not nothing. And yet honey is one of the most healing things in the human body.
Now you think the body is a temple. Would you spell a little bit on that one, the Trinity, and what your thoughts are?
They believe the body, the human body, is the most advanced, complex sets of geometries of physical material that exists anywhere within the entire cosmos. That your body is the most complex order of things. And because of that, they believed it made it sacred. The word body comes today of the word abode, meaning place of residence. It's where you live. Some cultures call the body the museum, meaning house of muses. Mnemosyne was the goddess, or the record keeper, which is where the word mnemonics comes from. And then it goes into mnemonics, and further on. Some people call it the library, meaning house of books and records. They anciently taught, and they're realizing today these people were not stupid, they were genius. Your body contains the records of all of your ancestors before you, and probably even pre-lives that you had before you got here now. That offends some religious cultures, so I won't go into that. But they also realize your body is a book of life. It is a book of knowledge. It is a book of records. And you not only have the records of all of the past lives, you have records within you of future lives. Otherwise, children and the book of their life could not be written and come forth from you. How many of you in this room, without being embarrassed, how many of you have ever had a dream of a future event and it actually came to pass? Wow. You people are pretty awesome. I have never had a group of people with that many hands go up. Not ever. That is the highest concentration I've seen.
Let me ask you this trick question.
Wow.
Do you happen to have any pulse with you today?
I do.
Who here would like to try pulse? All right, we're going to make sure that some of that happens.
Cool.
So moving forward here, when you talk about the memory, and you talk about how you memorized all these different things, my BS factor went up. And I said, there's no way you could have possibly remembered all that, yet you actually can prove that you have a great memory, and other people have a great memory. Could you elaborate on that?
In other countries in the world, I want to start doing it here in the U.S., I actually teach the ancient scholastic methods that I came across. Not academics. That makes me want to puke. You get a good dictionary, thank you. You get a good dictionary printed pre-1920. Look up the word academic. It means trivia. The word scholar means one who observes. Every child on this earth is born a natural scholastic genius. They come into this world observing. They're even observing in the last trimester in the womb, and we have it on film at the University of California, Berkeley, thanks to a good friend, Dr. Marion Diamond. If you have that baby in the last trimester, and the father and the mother both come up to the baby and put their hands cupped and make the vowel sound, A, E, I, O, U, W, for W, ha, for H, ya, for the letter Y. W-H and Y is where the word comes from. Why? They believed that was the most precious thing that could ever enter the human mind, was your desire to know why. And the reason vowel sounds were considered so sacred is because it does not block spirit when you make the sound. Latin for spirit is air. That's what spirit means. It means air, to breathe. When you make those sounds, A, E, I, O, U, Wa, Ha, Ya, there's no blocking. So all of the ancient gods that were the most sacred amongst all cultures, they only had vowel sounds, like Yahweh. There's no blocking of spirit or breath. And so when you go up to the baby and do that, they now have it on film. The baby goes like this. And they will form the mouth like they're making a sound. Then they have it on film, and it's thanks to they attended a lecture I did at MIT. You can go with one finger and touch the baby and say, one, and you do that 3 or 4 times. Two, 3, and that baby in the womb, they have it on film, will go. So when they're born and they come into this world, they are observers. They're natural scholastic geniuses. But in the modern world, we have been academically indoctrinated through the Industrial Revolution of needing mothers and fathers to work in factories. They knew you needed babysitting service, so they created what they called informal education. And these little kids by age 5 are sitting in neat little rows, chant repetitive memorization of pre-selected answers to stick in blanks on exams to get a grade. You get a good grade. You're a good little chant memorizer. You graduated from university. Good on you. Just don't bring it up with me. I'd rather know who you are and what you find pleasure in and what engages your mind out of interest and what do you find meaning in when you're engaged observing out of interest. So the principles of the scholastic method led me to finally discover the ancient scholastic teaching of memory. Mem is a doublet or a compound word. Mem or Mayan comes from the Hebrew and it means water. Ori means light. Memory is a reflection of light on calm, pure waters. This organ up here we call the brain. It's not named that out of an accident. Scholars study the form of the mouth and where your tongue is when you make sounds. It's like diphthongs, T, D, T, H. Make the sound of T. T, do D. You TV. It's in the exact same spot. Then you get into retroflexes. Arr. But they taught the 13 elements of understanding how your mouth can communicate sounds that represent pictures. Because the brain works in pictures. If you can't find a picture and express it with a word, you can't even communicate what you're thinking.
Okay, right there.
Anyway.
Let's do that. No, let's do that. Do that. Show them right now with one of your stories how people can have a great memory by using the pictures. So tell us a little story that we can repeat.
Okay. Today in the neurosciences, they know that you pick up pictures and edit or store and file, hit delete over 1 billion times a second. They know that your brain has mental software that is beyond their abilities to understand complexity. They keep trying, but they can't seem to get there. There are parts of your brain that lay dormant unless you know how to activate it, and which foods and plants to smell, to taste, and to even swallow, because of the frequencies of the cells of light in the photosynthesis process of the biophotons activating that part of the brain. And that's why ayahuasca and marijuana and peyote and all those other plants were so sacred and serious to the ancients. But they didn't go to McDonald's, suck down Coke Zero, and then take that. Yeah. They would fast on nothing but water for extended periods. And then there was a very specific amount based on the measures of your own body. And this isn't taught anymore. It's sad to me because it's precious. But it's just like this. I want you to just go through a little childlike thing with me. Picture a pickup truck in your mind. Make sure you pick your color. Awesome. In the back of that pickup truck is a 300-pound watermelon. You're looking at that thing going, what in the world? Did Monsanto do that? You come up to that watermelon and you go to thump the old melon, and just as you go up there and bash it, it cracks. And you're going, oh man. And right out of the middle of that watermelon comes a beautiful Barbie doll. 6 feet tall, stands up, comes out, she's dripping in juice. She looks at you and goes, you're like, okay. You go walking over to her and you get up there and she puts her hand out and there's a frog in her hand. And you're going, what? And this frog looks at you and he sticks out his tongue, and that tongue is that long, comes right out at you. And right on the end of the tongue is a microscope. The Barbie points at it and goes, all right. It's got a double lens, so you come up and you adjust it. And down in there you see a book. And on the cover of the book is a picture of your own mother on the cover of the book. All of a sudden the book opens. And there's a picture of your father. You're like, what is going on? Just then, there's a little bird on the corner. It's kind of flapping its wings. And it's got a big apple, and it's holding on to the stem. And it flies out from under there, and it comes up, and it comes right up in your face. And you grab the apple, and you take a bite. And you look in there, and there's a little scroll that looks like it's out of ancient Egypt or something. It's got hieroglyphs on it. And we'll stop right there. It's such nonsense, but what a lot of people don't realize is you never have to chant memorize anything. Is there anyone in the room that's ever seen me memorize like 100 words in about 40 seconds? Cool. Or even 25 words in 5 seconds? Yeah. I do this on stage, I do it on television, and I teach kids in other countries how to do it, and they freak. They fall in love. But let's see what happens here without any repetition. I want you to tell me, what was the first thing I asked you to see? Right. What was in the back? Water. You go up and knock, what happens? Barbie doll comes out. What's in her hand?
Frog.
Sticks his tongue out and what?
Microscope.
You look in and
Mother.
what's on the cover?
Father.
And then what?
Bird.
What's in his mouth?
Apple.
Comes out and
The scrolls.
Wow.
you didn't memorize that at all. And you know what forwards and backwards. When I teach one little thing, the first scholastic method to the kids in other countries, they can say their alphabet backwards immediately. You don't have to sit there and chant the alphabet, and you only know what the direction that you chant and memorize. They'll look at you and go, Z, Y, X, W, B, T, S, R, Q, P, O, N, M, L, J, H, D, F, E, D, C, B, and A. Then you can say, okay, jump on the middle to M and N and go both directions, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Okay, now start at both ends and come to 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And they're sitting there, and some of them smile, but they have tears coming down their face. They have no clue their brain has that capacity because it's not taught in formal academic instruction, and it's stupid. The future is schools as we know it today won't exist.
How your body is.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that's another thing that made the body so sacred and why they prepared the pulse meal or the meal of Hercules the way they did. Your body is based in transcendental ratios. One of those is called the golden mean, a measure of 1 to 1.6. For instance, you can take any one of your fingers and that first segment is in a relationship in mathematic ratio to 1.6 on the next two. And so the golden mean was from there to there and then back out. 1 to 1.6. What's that? Totally. And the golden spiral. That's because you can go like this and there's the golden spiral. And you can take your longest finger, take the mathematical measures of that, and it's 1 to 1.6. Multiply it, and it's the exact same length of your arm, which also has 3 parts, 1, 2, 3. From the finger to the wrist to the shoulder, back out, is the exact same measure of your finger. I enjoy birds, that's all it is. Then, your leg is the exact same measure as your arm and your finger. The measure of your foot, and this is your body. It's unique and individual. The measure of your foot, and then from ankle to hip, hip to ankle, back to the measure. Same exact measure as the arm and the fingers, just multiplied. The body is the same way, from the bottom of the feet to the navel, navel to the throat, throat to the top of the head. And then they divided the heavens. The word heaven to them meant heaven, or raised above the rest of the temple or museum or library or teocalli, just depends on the culture you're in. And so chin to nose, nose to brow, brow to the top of the head were the 3 heavens. In the 3rd heaven, once called the 3rd eye, but nothing mystical, it's just how they used to count. 1, 2, 3. Duh. But you have an eye that always sees, and it has a functional capacity to see in all ways. They believed that the most critical thing in any given life is to find out at a young age, or whenever, what are you truly interested in? Because anything that you observe out of interest activates all 7 senses of the human body. Not just hearing and sight and smell and taste and touch. It activates principles of intuition and the creata magis, the creative light. Imagination is everything. Imagination leads to art, music, poetry, craft, architectural building, not just drawing designs on paper. Those people blow it all the time. It's the people that go out and actually stick the cement in the poles and build the walls and do it that see all the mistakes and errors and correct them and make sure things are correct. How many are aware of that? It's true. And so we've got to get back to these measures. Plants have it. Plants, a lot of them, have roots under the ground. They come up out of the ground and then they push things into the air. There are foods that grow under the ground, such as potatoes and yams and carrots and garlic and things. They're precious to the very foundations of the basement of this house. The foods that grow on the ground, you can just walk up and gather and pick. Originally, they were called hunter-gatherers. They weren't hunting and killing animals. They were hunting the berries and the foods that were right there on the ground surface. Also, there were those that grew up in the heavens or in the sky at the top level. You had to climb the trees to get to some of the apples and the fruits up there. And that targets the brain. Anybody that has a mental fog, tired, fatigued, all you've got to do is become a fruitarian for about 3 weeks. And you watch what happens to the function of your brain and the clarity and the energy that you have. It is unbelievable. And yet the poison makers of today, I'm sorry, pharmaceutical Pharmaceutical comes with a great pharmakia. Most of you probably know it. It means poison makers. They were the ones that murdered the ancient healers in the earliest dynasties of Egypt, the Swinwet, the lady healers. They were the ones that murdered Pythagoras and killed all the scholars there. They were the ones that burned Alexandria and the records at Ephesus. They're the ones that hold this precious information under lock and key to this day. They don't want you to know that you can heal yourself, that you don't need medicine. Thank you.
What's that? The pearly gates.
Woo. We don't have a whiteboard, do we? You can just picture a 5-pointed star. That was one of the most precious geometric forms. All of matter, they knew anciently, and it's been proven today in the study of physics, all matter naturally forms into 5 basic shapes. It forms into spheres or circles, like an orange is a sphere. Your eyeball is a sphere within a sphere within a sphere. That's why Atlantis had a circle and a circle and a circle. It was a symbol of vision, the human eye. Shut up, Don. Okay. So, I go off on too much stuff, but the thing is that, so the sphere, cubes or squares, like salt crystals, naturally formed. It's one of the minerals that forms into a square, a cube. The mint family of plants were considered so precious. Their stems, like peppermint stems and things, perfect squares. They're not even round. They're one of the only plants that do that. Why do they form a square? What does that mean? In the geometries of our body and functional capacities, in our own functions of physiology. This is the stuff that's got to come back. It's not even being taught anymore. I'm all over the world teaching this stuff, and I absolutely love it. But I realize I want to come back to California. These people have been ready since the 60s.
Hold on. So I'm now going to give you guys an opportunity because, well, no, it's cool. What we're going to do is ask questions right now. This is an opportunity for you guys because, again, when we had it in Utah, we just started bombarding with all kinds of different questions. Does anyone here have anyone that wants to ask Don? Yeah.
Don,
Loud, just real loud.
do you eat eggs?
I agree with the wisdom of the ancients in all of these cultures. They believed that for you to eat an egg, it is not killing anything. There is no violence involved. And you can test it yourself. Put an egg out on the grass and try to sneak up on it. And so they knew that the egg was not violent. In the ancient world, they believed that pleasure of any kind is the highest good. and that the only evil that exists is violence against innocence. And so they would not murder the animals and eat their dead bodies. They wouldn't rip out their livers and hearts and chew on them. They wanted to honor all living things and to give pleasure to those things. So eggs, I believe, are in absolute keeping with the functions of the body for health and longevity.
And enjoy your steak lunch.
Sorry about that.
And by the way, how much pulse did you bring with you today?
And I hope I'm not offensive here. I'm not trying to offend you.
How much pulse did you bring? Get to the, I want to
I
hear.
don't even know.
Did you bring some packages? Or did you bring the whole big thing?
I brought six of my latest books. One of them it's 2 books in one. On this side it says Medicines and Pharmaceutic Kills.
Oh.
And it's out of their own published literature. The 13 most dangerous things you can get involved with your doctor that he'll hand out just like it's some kind of holiday candy. And it's all there. I have that, and you flip it over, and it shows the body systems and pictures of anatomy and the top 13 healing foods that target that body system.
Oh, wow.
And I have all of that here, and I'm going to give those to you.
One for the tub of love, right there. Give it for Don Toller, right there. So, another question. Anyone else? Yes, over here.
Hey Don, I just want to say thank you for sharing, like, the resonance of everything you were sharing. The resonance of everything you were sharing, just amazing for me. And just real briefly, just tell you a story, not more than 45 seconds at the most, but 26 years old, I see my brother get killed. 10 years depression, I was all in that pharmaceutical thing. I go to, somebody introduces this live living food thing to me. Within 3 weeks, it all disappears. And then I just went to a whole nother octave and I became a high-flying missile for the next 5 years. Like that's the metaphor I use.
Yeah.
Just a high-flying missile for the next 5 years. Then the whole GFC thing happened, and all of a sudden I lost my way. And then recently spent 21 days in Costa Rica on a 21-day water fast.
Beautiful.
And so everything that you shared has been my experience, and I'm here now because of chance encounter with Greg. And I'm just so activated by what you're sharing. It just so resonates, and I'm really like, I just feel like Spirit's trying to rescue me from the inertia. I was set adrift during those 5 years, after the first 5 years of being a high-flying missile and being rescued, so to speak. You know, it was my personal redemption or salvation. And so I feel like Spirit is trying to, through the people that are coming into my life, trying to rescue me from being set adrift again.
Good. Well, welcome.
And so I'm so glad to be here.
You're welcome.
It's so great for you, Sharon.
Do we have a question for Don? Yes. In the very back. Yes.
Thank you.
Being an advanced cancer conqueror, I'm absolutely enthralled with everything that you're saying. So what can you share specifically in terms of what you've learned? Because I did the 2 years of traditional and believe I'm still here because of the non-traditional.
Yeah.
So thank you for your teachings.
Appreciate it. I just did an event at Dr. Yoder's event facilities last night in Encinitas. And unbeknownst to me, Kyle Bowler, he's a quarterback with the San Diego Chargers, and he was with the Baltimore Ravens and everything. I think he just recently retired, but he and his wife, Carrie, showed up with her father. I met them because of a phone call. They asked me to come to their house just outside San Diego. I went in there. Here's this guy. He's got a tumor that big on the side of his neck.
Oh.
He's been through all the treatments and all the crap. He's on a feeding tube going into his guts. He's told, if you eat or drink anything, you'll die. So he's been on the feeding tube for 3 months. He's at home. They said you probably have 2 to 3 weeks left. I go to the home. After an hour and a half of discussion, Kyle and his wife, Carrie, gave permission to get rid of the feeding tube because I lifted down the can of Nestle's Nutritionals and read it to him. Number 1 ingredient, high fructose corn syrup. Number 2, aspartame.
Oh.
And if we were right down the list, there was not one nutritional component in that entire thing. He'd been on it 90 days. He was just skeleton and white, bleached skin. Couldn't even hold his head up. Couldn't even talk. I pulled it out. I made him fresh, what I call Kabbalah juice. I just came up with that as an acronym to remember carrots, apple, beet, apple, lemon, apple. So 2 pounds of carrots, 3 apples, beet, and a lemon. We go in and give it to him, and they're all a little nervous and scared because they've been told if he drinks anything, he'll choke to death and die. He doesn't care because he knows he's gone. He takes it, holds it up to his nose, and I said, please just smell it first. He smelled it, and tears ran down his face. And he took a sip, and everybody's like, and he swallowed, and it was fine. He drank 2 quarts of that in 30 minutes. And he showed up last night. That was 6 months ago. He's got a wonderful suntan, because I said that's the most critical thing for you to do is get out and develop a suntan. Sunscreen causes skin cancer, don't use it.
Say that.
He goes out and follows the protocol that I've shared, just about his own self-healing. He shows up last night. That tumor is completely gone.
Oh my God.
Wow.
He plays tennis every single day, and he's back at work, and he loves his life.
Wow. That's a great story.
There's things that you do, you'll clear any of the toxicities that are in the residual interstitial tissues. You'll be able to clear all of that from chemo, radiation. You ever have a tumor removed surgically, there's going to be a recurrence, just give it 12 to 18 months and it'll be all over. That's the way they make their money. Go ahead.
Hi Don, thank you so much. How often do you recommend a water fast, and for how often a year or often a month, and then for how many days consecutive?
Yeah. If you follow a good, healthy...
Kind of like alkaline water, or...
Oh, okay.
Are there myths about that, or...?
I believe 100% it's a myth, but that's me. If you want to have a good alkaline body, eat acidic food. Citrus foods, lemon juice, that causes the body to produce alkaline. If you want to have acid reflux and be very acidic, eat alkaline foods, which is mostly dead animals. All the animal bodies are alkaline. So your body has to produce a lot of acid to try to break it down and get it out of the house. That's how people get typically too much acid. It's just the reverse of what a lot of people are taught to believe. So when it comes to women from the ancient world, this is what they did. They followed a 13 lunar month calendar. Pope Gregory got rid of one of those O's and calls it month to get it back to 12, to screw up time so that people would not study plants. And when they come forward, and even the time of the phase of the moon and the time of the day to harvest them. There are certain foods you should never pick them when the sun's high in the sky. You should wait until it's in the shade of night. How many are aware of this? Yeah. And they always started the water fast on a new moon, because that was the beginning of a new work, and the waxing of the moon, they believed, gave you emotional and mental strength. The moon affects the earth, yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely.
And guess what? It affects us. A lot of people don't want to acknowledge it anymore because it's been academically erased, but you would fast 10 days on water every 3 months. And so that's 40 days a year. A lunar year is 364 days. 3 plus 6 plus 4 is 13. There were 13 lunar moons. You have 13 enterologies of the human body. And they used to be taught. Here they are. Enters means doorways. The way disease comes in, the way disease goes out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The skin is 12. It vents. True? And it lets things in. 13 was your imagination. Your thoughts are everything. You can heal so many things with your own thoughts and avoid things with your own thoughts. Your thoughts determine your emotions determine your behaviors, and your behaviors is what brings the result. I'll shut up. Thank you very much.